Hey everybody, welcome back to Watch and Carry. Today's video we have another Casio mod. This one is actually going to be going to a moderator of one of the Casio Facebook groups that I'm a part of, Casio Watch group. Really excellent group that I invite you guys to join. I've actually put the link to them in the description below. In there you'll find lots of Casio enthusiasts and modders alike. And want to thank Ronald again for trusting me with this watch and for moderating such a great page. So this particular model we're working on is here on the back, the GBD-800-1CR. Now from the factory, this comes with a negative display, and Ronald has asked to have this converted to a positive because he finds the negative a little bit hard to read. In this setting where I have really bright fluorescent light above, this might seem very easy to read, but I can tell you when I was inspecting this watch out in, regular daylight, I could see what he means. Definitely a little bit hard to read, especially if you're holding it at an angle. So we're going to convert this to positive, which basically means we have that gray or white background, and we're going to have the black numerals. So we have a nice raised bezel here, so I don't have to worry about that glass hitting my surface. This is silicone, almost like a rubberized type of feel, so we will not be damaging the case by just putting this face down. And we're going to start by removing this bracelet because these little guides here for the end links of the strap block that case, so we have to remove the entire strap. So let's take a look here. Sometimes you can remove the strap just by getting at the spring bars, but again, these guards are kind of blocking that. So these screws are usually for the shroud, but let's see. Let's start with these screws here. This is my first time working on this particular model. All right, let's see if we can get this strap removed. Okay, so it's still stuck on this. So just like I thought, I think those screws were just for this black shroud. So probably didn't help it any by doing that. So okay, the shroud, let's see. It's this red guard that is kind of getting in the way here. Now there is a hole in here, or a slot on both sides. I'm wondering if that's... I can't see those slots serving any other purpose than getting your lug tool in there. Very unusual. I've never seen this design before. So let's see if my tool can get all the way in there. Now this one's too short. Okay, I'm able to reach it. Okay, I think I got it. There we go. Okay, so with this particular thing, if you see one of these types of straps with this little guard here, you just have to use your lug tool and get through that slot and kind of pry that spring bar inward. You want to pry on one spring bar first and then pull out to get that out. So kind of a interesting. I guess this might be for comfort. That's why they kind of put that in there. Okay. And then once we loosen that spring bar, kind of pull out like that. So again, if you're going to do this particular mod, those 4 screws that are removed at the beginning, absolutely no need to do that. Those will just, those are just to secure this black part to this inner part of the case. So I will reinstall those later, but you can skip that step if you're doing this mod. Now we have the case back here with 4 screws. So just like the other videos, go ahead and just remove all 4 of these. Okay, and these screws are definitely a different design than the other 4 that we removed, so I don't have to worry about confusing those. Okay, now we have our case back. I always like to remember the orientation that I put the case back in, so the 12 o'clock here is at the top. I'm going to flip it over, turn it to its side. And let's open this case back up. You want to open these up slowly. Kind of look to the side underneath to check that O-ring. Okay, in this case, the O-ring is staying with the case. What will sometimes happen is that O-ring can be attached here to the case back or attached to the case as it is here. What you want to check for, though, is that if the O-ring is halfway or partially attached to the case and partially attached to the case back, if you go ahead and just lift this whole thing up right away, what can happen is you'll stretch that O-ring, and then it'll make it very difficult to reinstall back. So you just want to make sure that it's not being stretched when you take this off. Okay. I'm also going to remove the O-ring just because some of your disassemblies might be different, and I want to show you guys how to put it back. So again, you want to be delicate while lifting that up. You don't want to just yank it because, again, you don't want to stretch it. And this one has a nice glisten to it in the light, which means it's well lubricated, so no need to re-oil that. You have this gray piece here. You'll notice that on this side we have these little gray nubs that I'm kind of gripping at, and then on this side we don't have any. So the nub side will be facing you when you reinstall. And I like to put my parts from left to right when I'm disassembling, so that way when I reassemble, I'm kind of following it step by step in the reverse direction. Okay, now we're going to get to the module here, and we can take a tool here, and well, first of all, you want to check around the perimeter. Depending on the watch you're working with, you might sometimes have a wire harness going from the case to the module, which you're going to have to disassemble. Those are usually going to be on your ABC watches that have the altimeter, barometer, and compass. In this case, we don't have that, so we can just lift up at either the 6 o'clock or the 12 o'clock position and get this module out of the case. Okay, this one's nice and easy, so I'm prying there from the 6. I'm going to take that module out, and then I'm immediately going to put the case back on to limit the amount of dust that goes in here. Okay, so here's our module. Now we have a soft silicone surface, as I mentioned, but I always like to add a little bit extra layer of protection when working with the display. So I'm going to put a clean microfiber cloth down. And we want to loosen this up so that way we can get this display off. So you're going to have these clips here on the perimeter. Okay, all around here. So you want to just go ahead and maybe use your spring bar tool and just go ahead and separate that out. Now, as you loosen the clips, the display itself will start to fade and then eventually disappear. And that's normal because you are separating the battery on the back from the display on the front. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now, before I open this up, I kind of want to look carefully underneath, maybe flip this over, keep everything together, and just check for any springs. So you'll notice we have a spring here in the back. That's probably what makes connection between the module and the case back to give you the sound when you press the button or your alarms. So that tells me that when I open this up, I have to be careful about where I put this spring back. So I'm going to keep this facing down so the spring is in the downward position. I'm just going to carefully lift this up like so and separate it out. On different GShock models, what will happen is you'll also have these really, really tiny gold springs that make contact between the display and the circuit board. This particular one does not have that. But my point of saying that is when you're working on this and you're disassembling the module, really make sure you've got like a wide open area to work, and that you have, like some kind of surface you're working on, so that way if things fall that are really tiny to see, like springs, it's relatively easy to find them. And just be, delicate when taking this apart. So everything we're going to be working on with this particular mod is on the left. I don't need to worry about anything on the right. So I'm just going to put that up here. And this is kind of where we're at right now for the parts that we've disassembled. Okay, let's get back to our module here. This looks like it's not going to be too bad. So you have this piece right here. You can kind of lift up gently on that, set that off to the side. Just remember these two black little rectangles are going to be facing you when you reassemble. You have these tiny parts here at the top. Let's see if we can get that. Okay, not coming off yet. So let's go to, I believe this is the diffuser. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe somebody in the comments can tell me. But this part comes off. Okay, and when we take this off, it has these little projections here. And those projections are facing me when I reinstall this, and it's flat on the part that gets touching to the back of the display. Okay, now that I've removed that part, I want to try to get these little parts out. Okay, still not coming off. So now we have the display. Let's see if we can get that off carefully. Maybe. Okay, so here's a perfect example of why we are working carefully and slowly here. So as I was disassembling this part fell out here. I don't want to pick that up because I'm so worried that my tweezer might make it fly across the room. Let me just try to turn it for you. Yeah, this part I've seen quite a lot on GShocks that I've worked with, and I believe this is integral to allowing the backlight to function on the watch. And I think that this part goes over here, okay, in a certain orientation. I think it's with the silver contacts facing you, and then it makes a connection with this part over here. So anyways, be very mindful of anything that falls down. Okay, I'm going to carefully lift this up and put this right next to my screws here so I don't lose it. Again, if you're working with tweezers, especially plastic tweezers, you really want to be gentle picking this up, not only because you don't want to damage that part, but if you kind of grip things tightly, what ends up happening is if the part slips, all that force in your grip is going to shoot that thing across the room, and you can see just how tiny that is. It can be nearly impossible to find, and then you have a big problem. So just go slowly when taking your watch apart there. Okay. So maybe I can go ahead and just push this display from the front, which is what I'm doing here with the cloth. and then lift this up. Okay. Want to take a look for anything that comes off here. So these two black pieces don't look like they're falling off on their own. They're kind of stuck there. Okay. You'll notice that there's one white nub here and two here on the top. The two on the top are going to be the 12 o'clock, so I'm just making a mental note there. I'm going to set this off to the side. And then we have these two pieces that should come off easily right here. Okay, these are about the same size, which I think means it doesn't really matter which one goes where. I'm obviously going to set them in the order that I remove them in. Okay, like that. Now we get to our display here. Okay, so for simplicity's sake, the best way to think about this display, if you kind of look here at the side, is that it's actually made up of several layers. And just to make things simple, I want you to think about this as made up of 3 layers. So if I hold the display like this, my fingers on the left are going to represent the display, or I'm sorry, my fingers on the left are going to represent the display like this. If I turn the display to its side, I'm going to turn my fingers to the side, and now you can just kind of visualize the 3 layers that make this display up. Now, this customer wants to have a positive display, which means we need to remove the topmost layer, which is called a polarizing film. We need to clean the glue underneath that film that's holding it in place right now, and then put a brand new polarizing film on top, but turn that film 90 degrees to the left or 90 degrees to the right, which will give the positive effect. And it'll make more sense when I cut out the new polarizing film and show you. Okay, so again, we're going to turn this to the side, follow my fingers on the left. This is the topmost layer here in black. We're going to go ahead and remove this off, clean the glue underneath, put a brand new polarizing film on, and then turn it 90 degrees in either direction to get the positive effect. So how do you find this top layer when everything is sandwiched so close together it can be hard to find it? Well, you can kind of just drag something here on the top and feel and listen for it to drop to that next level. And so what I'm going to use here is a guitar pick. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is plastic. I'm going to gently drag it on the top. I'm going to listen and feel for it to drop to the next layer, and then go ahead and wedge this in to separate that layer out. So let me have you listen and watch for that jump that the pick takes from the top polarizing filter to the middle layer. Okay, that little click sound is the filter jumping from here down to here. Okay, so because this layer is glued to this, we also want to not only use mechanical advantage with the pick, you want to use a little bit of chemical advantage. And so in this case, we're going to be using a fluid called Goo Gone. You can also use something called Goof Off, and this is basically going to help loosen up that glue and make it easier to remove the polarizing film, and also make it easier to clean the glue underneath so that we have a nice clean layer to lay our brand new polarizing film on top of. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get a towel, some Q-tip set, and then we'll come back in. Okay, so here's our setup. We've got our Goo Gone there in the corner. We've got a clean microfiber cloth, which is going to help me rub off that glue. I have my guitar pick, and then I have several Q-tips over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a little bit to the edges, kind of all around the sides here, and that will just kind of allow the Goo Gone to seep down into the initial part of the polarizing film, loosen it up a little bit, and then make it much easier to get my pick to put inside there. So the Goo Gone, it's not instant. You want to let it sit, usually a few minutes, like 5 minutes is best. So I'll check back in 5 minutes. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes here. I'm going to take my guitar pick, dip the edge here in Goo Gone, and just go to one of the corners here and try to start wedging this out. Okay, so in this case, very easy to do. You can see here there'll be a tiny air bubble created there, and then I could start peeling this all away. Now there's some people that don't use the pick. They use a blade instead. Both methods are fine and they will work. Of course, the blade is a little bit more dangerous. You know, you are moving with something that's pretty slippery in the direction of your fingers, so you just want to be careful. That being said, I have had some displays where I am not able to get the pick started in the corner, on any corner. So in that case, I will take my blade, kind of, you know, curl my finger so it's only my nails being exposed, and then put the blade here on the corner, get a very small edge lifted up, and then ditch the blade and go to the pick and finish the job off that way, because obviously this is going to be safer for you. If you don't have a guitar pick, you can just use, you know, maybe a credit card or something like that, like an old credit card, old membership card that you're no longer using, and it'll do the exact same thing. So comes off nice and easy there, one solid movement, and this is our polarizing film. So I can kind of show you what I mean here, because we are basically going to take something just like this, but brand new, and put it on here to make the positive display. But right now, if I was to install this back into the watch, battery and everything, you would not see anything at all because the polarizing film has not been applied. If I take a polarizing film and put it back in the way that I took it off, we have negative. If I turn 90 degrees to the left or 90 degrees to the right, we get our positive. So that's all it is when it comes to making the negative or positive displays. It just depends on which orientation the factory applies that polarizing film. Okay. It does also matter which side of the film you're on, so I'm going to show you that in a little bit, but for simplicity's sake, 90 degrees in either direction is what gives you the desired effect. Okay, so this particular part I can throw away. And then here we have, might be hard to see on camera, but we have quite a bit of, let's zoom in here for you. There you go. You can kind of see all those little dots of glue. So you're going to take your Q-tip that has been soaked in Goo Gone and kind of soak this whole area in it without rubbing it off right now. Pay particular attention to the edges because that's where the glue is a little bit harder to remove. Okay, completely soaked in Goo Gone, and again, let this sit for 5 minutes. So I'll be right back. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. Take the same Q-tip, and now we're going to go ahead and just hold it kind of at a 45-degree angle and just try to loosen up that glue. Once you feel you have a lot of these clumps here that you can see, you can go ahead and just take your microfiber cloth, which is what I'm working on top of right now, and kind of wipe that off. So this is the procedure for getting this display clean. Again, you don't really have to wait 5 minutes on the second pass, but just coat the whole thing in Goo Gone, rub, and then wipe. You want to keep doing this until a couple of things. Number one, you want to turn this in the light, and that should be completely clean. No more little splotches of glue. And you're also going to hear it. When it gets very clean, the Q-tip and the towel are going to make a squeaky sound. So for now, we don't really hear anything because there's still a lot of glue on this display. So let me show you one more time. apply, swirl, and rub off. There you go. You can hear it a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here to save some time. Just repeat those 3 steps until this thing looks completely clean and you hear that squeaky sound. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes now. I think I have this mostly clean. Make sure to alternate or switch out for a fresh Q-tip when you feel that the cotton is kind of worn down. You don't want to be grinding this root part into the display. So there's that squeaky sound. Focus on the edges here. Make sure to rotate your towel so you have a clean part that's rubbing off that glue. Rotate my towel. Let's dry this off because I think we are at the end here. Okay, and then I'm going to rotate it here in the light, and you can see we don't have any more of those dots. Nice and clean. Okay, go ahead and ditch the towel. Put our cloth back here, and you want to wash your hands at this point because this stuff, it gets hard to remove from your fingers. Okay, now let's switch for a different work mat because I think this will be easier on your eyes than having white on white. Okay, now we're going to cut out our polarizing film. So let me show you what that looks like. This is a sheet of it right here. Now you can get this in 2 versions, adhesive backed or non-adhesive backed. Adhesive backed is just going to be basically like a sticker where one side is sticky. This one is a non-adhesive. Now with all these filters, you're usually also going to get 2 extra layers. So you have the actual polarizing filter in the middle. On the top, you have a protective layer, which is why we have these air bubbles here. And then on the back, you also have another protective layer. So the first thing you have to know is which side of this filter do we use? Do I use this side or do I use this side? You want to use the side that only gives you black or white. You don't want to have any gradient color. So for example, if I hold this filter over it in this way and I turn it, I'm not only getting blacks and whites, but I'm getting like pinks, blues, greens. I don't know if that's coming out. Let me turn down the brightness. There you go. Lots of gradient colors, which look pretty cool. You can actually make a mod using this and the watch will work. But the customer here just wants a positive, so we need to flip this over. And then there is our negative that we started with, which means that if we turn this 90 degrees, it'll be positive. Okay. Now some polarizing films, they don't always line up correctly where the 90 degrees is in line with the free edge over here. Sometimes it might be more at an angle. So you just want to turn this till you either get the brightest white for your positive display conversion, or you get the darkest black for your negative display conversion. It's the same procedure for either mod. You just want to make sure that it is the brightest or the darkest before you cut it out. So in this case, very easy. I'm just going to line it up with this free edge over here. Okay. Now, when it comes to figuring out what size to cut this, if you're using an adhesive backed, meaning you have that sticky side, polarizing film, I would go ahead and just kind of trace the exact shape of what you removed and then just stick it right onto the display itself. I don't like to use polarizing films, so what I'm going to do is actually take the case and I'm going to trace a shape that's slightly larger than the display, but it's going to fit all along the inside of this case. Okay, so that's the size I'm going for. Now, before you kind of draw that out, you want to make sure that when you put this filter down, or this film down, that you are not blocking any contacts, because sometimes here at the 6 o'clock or somewhere else there will be like a metal contact that provides some kind of function to your watch. You don't want the filter or the film to be blocking that. In this case, this is all clear completely around, so I can just go ahead and cut out my film to the size of this black masking on the inside. Okay, so to do that, remember that our film has to be in a certain orientation, right? But when we apply it into the actual case, it's going to be the reverse of that, right? So it actually has to be this way because everything is going to be upside down when we install it. So I'm going to turn my film this way and then kind of put it over there. Take a fine tip Sharpie and just trace out the shape that I need. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be about the correct size. I'm going to go ahead and put a B on here. You'll notice that the B in this orientation is a lot brighter than the B over here where it seems dull. And the point of that B is to tell me that this is the back of the filter, which means that this should be facing towards me when I install it, because we're looking at the back of the watch right now. Okay, then I like to draw a couple of arrows, one pointing up here and one here, because when we cut this all out, you don't have this free edge on the top anymore, and it might be confusing to remember, oh, do I install it this way or do I install it this way? So the arrows kind of give you that 90-degree reference point. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So let's go ahead and put our case back on here, again limiting dust from going in there, and we're going to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so here is our film. Okay, let's go ahead and hold it by its edges here. I'm going to use this air blaster to kind of take out as much dust as I can from it. Hold it by its edge, take our watch and just test fit it on the inside to see if it's the right size. Okay, so I have good coverage here at the top, pretty good here. It's a little bit too wide here on the sides. It's kind of going into the silver colored part, which I don't want. I want this to sit completely flat. A little bit too long here at the bottom, so I need to trim a little bit there. So let's trim a little from the bottom and from this side of the filter. Okay, let's try that now. Again, I'm dusting it before I lay it in there so I don't transfer too much dust into the case. Okay, that looks pretty good, much better than before. I have this edge here at the top kind of going a little bit too far, so let me trim that as well. Okay, that looks pretty good. Not quite the exact size of that black masking on the inside, but it's enough. The key here is that when you cut this size, you want to make sure that you have an overlap, that it is not only covering the windows, you know, these three open windows, but it's going past that into here, so that way we can adhere it to the masking. Okay, I'm going to set my film to the side here. And then now I need to cut some double-sided glue tape, and I'm going to put some of that glue tape on different parts of this inside part, so that way we can stick our masking down into it. Now I have a separate video on how to cut and apply the glue tape, so I will put that link in the description below if you want more details, because I'm not going to show the actual cutting here. This is the tape that I am using though. T-Rex brand super glue tape. This is double-sided with a white protective backing. And then I'm going to be using my knife here and my lug tool to cut off a small sliver here for the side. Okay, so here's my little strip of glue tape here. And I'm going to apply this right to the top. I don't want to apply it too close to the edge over here. I want to keep it a little bit away from this open edge when I apply it. There's the white protective layer there. Just lay that in. Tap it down, and then you can lift on the protective backing and get that off. So there's our tape on the inside. Then I'm going to take a toothpick here and just kind of spread this. So the reason why I don't want to apply this tape too close to this free edge over here is because when we reassemble everything, the tape is going to get squished. And then if it's too close here, the tape can actually spread into the visible area of the window, which won't look nice. So keep it like a millimeter or two away. And then you can spread it a little bit more where you need it with a toothpick. And then once it's in place, just go ahead and lightly tap that down. Okay, let's get another strip here for the bottom. Okay, in this case, the protective white backing came off already. All right, looks pretty good. Two more little tiny pieces here on the left and the right. we go. So now we have our tape laid down. Okay, now before we lay down our polarizing film in here, we want to make sure that we don't have any visible dust that's on there. Got some fingerprints here on the top. Let me just clean that off. And then having a black background here provides a little bit of contrast to check for those dust particles. Okay, if you see any, you can just take your air blaster and hold this right side up and then dust it from underneath and then kind of recheck to see if you see any dust. Okay, it looks pretty clean. We're going to take our filter here. Now remember, we have protective layers on the front and the back of this. So once we peel those layers off, there's no need to dust it anymore. So let's do the front first. Again, we want to make sure we have the right orientation, which is why we have our arrows here. That tells me the direction to apply this into. And then you can see here that the B is quite shiny looking at me this way, but quite dull this way. So this tells me that this is the right side to be going down first. So you're going to peel the front first. It can be kind of tricky to find the front layer. Okay, got it easier that time. So there's that protective film for the front. And the back protective film we can leave on, and let's just go ahead and apply this down. Take a thin tool and just kind of position it before you stick it. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and push down where I applied the glue. You'll see the glue start to darken a little bit as it adheres to the polarizing film. Okay, kind of like that. And then we're going to remove the back protective part. You want to be delicate with this part, like so. Okay, and then we're immediately going to replace our case back because we have to reassemble our module before putting that in. So when it comes to reassembly of the module, this is kind of the layout that you should have for this particular watch. So we're going to start with this part actually first, and then our display. Okay, remember that the two little nubs here at the top are going to be the 12, and the one here at the bottom is going to be the 6. Here's our display. How do we find the 12 and the 6? Well, we know that this little circle here is the upper part of the watch, so that'll be the 12. So we're going to take this part, flip it over so that the mirror side faces you, and then insert that down like so till it sits flush and flat inside of this little white part. You might have to move it around a bit. In this case, I just remembered we have these two little black foam pieces over there. So let's actually put our module touching those foam pieces first and then lay the left side down. There we go. And that's going to have it sit flush, which is great. Okay, then we are going to just make sure that's in there. Okay. Then we have to apply that little piece that came off earlier. And I'm just guessing here. So here's that piece. Very careful. So you'll notice that the back side of it is white and the front side of it has these two metal contacts. I know for sure that the metal contacts need to be facing me, so the white side should go down. But I also know that it does matter if this piece is being laid like this, or if we have to move it 180 degrees to the other side. Because I had a GShock that I just did for a customer, reassembled it in one orientation, the backlight didn't work, took it apart, changed the orientation 180 degrees to the other side, and the backlight was completely fine. So for this one, I believe it goes in this way. You can see there's a little bit more, if you look at the white part, you see how the white kind of like tapers in the middle, and that it's thicker and fuller on the right side, but thinner on the left. I think the thicker side of that white part is going to be facing the inside of this watch. And again, I'm just guessing here. So this is going to be hard to see on camera, but you want to be very, very careful laying this down in. Okay, the display doesn't look to be flat. 1 second. There we go. And we'll lightly tap that down. And from now on, you want to be very, very delicate with laying the rest of your parts in, because any sudden movements can make that little piece jump up. We're going to take this piece next. Okay, and remember for this part, the projections are going to be facing towards you when you apply it down. So I'm going to lay it down. I believe this goes... Okay, I think it goes this way. I think I told you that this part was going to touch this part, but I think I'm wrong about that. I'm going to turn it this way. So this part, I think, is actually going to fit in this little space right here. Okay, actually, I think I'm wrong. It's not fitting that way. Let's turn this 180 degrees to the left. Oops, see, the little contact came out of place when I laid it down. Okay, let's try this. Okay, now ran into another small problem here. Let me carefully move this away. So in this part, it looks like there is another part here that actually comes off. See if I can show that to you. There you go. See how this tiny white part came off of that little slot right there? So let me set this off to the side. Okay, and let's put this part down first. So again, that slot is going to be on the left side. It's going to match up with the contacts over here, and the projections, the parts you can feel, are going to be facing up when you lay this down. So Okay, so that laid in nicely. And then now let's go ahead and replace this tiny part. Okay, I don't think it matters which side you put down, but you want to put the thin part of it down into that slot. Okay, so I'm hoping, I know this is a little bit hard for you guys to see, but there's where it got installed. All right, I'm just guessing here that we did that in the right order, but if not, I don't think it'll be too hard to fix. Now we're going to take these two parts here in black and then install that one at the top and one at the bottom. I don't think it matters which one goes where because they're both the same size, and then just gently tap those down. Okay. And we're going to take this part here and install that. There we go. That should lay down nice and flat. Okay, then we're going to take our circuit board here, have it in this orientation. Now, you want to flip the circuit board part over. So you want to flip the green part over like this and put it onto the white. You don't want to take the white and flip this over, because if you do that, all these little parts here on the left that we have to install are going to come falling out, and you have to reinstall everything. So don't touch the white, just manipulate the green. So that black little square should be facing you. Okay, I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of pressure here on the board because I don't want that spring in the back to fall off. Okay, make sure your spring is still there. And then I'm just going to carefully install this onto this part. Let me see if I can zoom in for you here. Okay, now as I get closer to laying this down, it's harder for me to put pressure on the underside. So I'm going to take a toothpick and just kind of hold that circuit board in place, because if that circuit board drops, the spring drops. So I'm going to hold that in place and just carefully line that up. And then set everything down. Okay, once it's kind of lined up, be very careful here. Okay, those little silver clips at the beginning that you kind of pried off with the spring bar, you want to make sure that those are lined up properly with the white counterparts that they're going to clip into. Once everything's kind of lined up, just keep everything flat and put some pressure with one finger on the middle, and then just use your other finger to start clipping the sides of the metal, and you're going to hear it clip in like you can in this video. Once it's clipped in, then you can pick up everything because it's all secured as one unit. Okay, these are the clips I was talking about that you should be hearing clipping into place. You want to check all of those out to make sure that they are clipped completely in the proper space. Okay, so that looks really good. Okay, so there's our display. Again, we don't see anything because the polarizing film is inside the case. So now let's go back to our case over here. Okay, We want to go ahead and check this against a black background for any dust that might be in there. Because it's stuck in there, you can flip this over, give this a quick dusting, recheck for dust, hold this away from the table for now, and just give your module quick dusting. Okay, bring your case back, make sure it's the right side, 12 o'clock at the top, take your module, flip this over. You want to check that these little pushers are all pushed back in, which they are. If they're not, just take something small and push them back in like a toothpick, and then install this part in like so. Okay, now it's not going to sit completely flush because what's happening is the button is attached to a little stem, and then as you're putting the module down, the module is actually touching the top of that stem. You want the module to kind of be behind it. So what you want to do is take your whole watch, put a little bit of pressure with one finger, take a spring bar tool, and then go to these little metal tabs. You see that? It's really thin. You got a metal tab here. It's very, very thin. Another one here, one there, and then one there. And you want to pry inward on those tabs while applying a little bit of pressure with your finger. Okay, so let's pry inward here, and you'll feel the whole thing kind of sit down. Go to the next one, do the same thing. Okay, and then now you can see that when you push the button here, you see how that little metal part is moving on the inside. Check the other one. Okay, look right here where my left fingernail is. See that metal tab is moving? And then check the other two. And that's just telling you that your buttons are making proper contact with the module itself. Okay, now let's replace the other parts we have. So we have this gray part over here. The little nubs are going to be facing you when you reapply that. And then the spring will come out of a little cutout here, and then the small metal contact will come out of the left side. Take your O-ring. Again, make sure it's well lubricated. If you don't have this nice glisten underneath direct light, you're going to want to put a little bit of 100% silicone oil. When you apply this O-ring, it's a little bit easier to just apply the 6 o'clock first, where you kind of have those squared off edges, because those line up everything, and then you can just lightly tap down and push the O-ring down into its little trough that it sits in. Okay, and actually I made a mistake here. Let's lift up the gray part. We have to do an all clear, which is what you would do if you replace the battery, because we took apart the battery. So you're going to take a paper clip here. You're going to want to bend it in a U shape, and then you want to look for a hole that's labeled as AC for all clear. And so that particular hole on this model is going to be right over here. See, it says AC with a little arrow. So you're going to put one end of the paper clip in here, and the other end you're going to be touching to this negative contact over here. But honestly, I think you're okay if the other end just touches anywhere that's metal. And then you're going to hold it for about 10 seconds. Okay, so hopefully I can get this on camera for you. Okay, holding for 10. Okay, if you did a proper all clear and you flip this display over, it should be showing midnight, which it is. Okay, so that tells me we did a proper all clear. Then at this point, you would go ahead and apply your other parts that we just did. So I'd apply that O-ring. Okay, that's proper. Then I'm going to apply the gray piece here. Like so. And then we're going to take our case back. You want to lay the case back in this orientation and put it completely down. And you don't want to move this around to match up the holes, because as you roll this around, you're actually going to roll that O-ring off, and then you will lose your water resistance rating. So you want to line up those holes from the start, and then once it looks good, just kind of push and hold everything in place. Keep pressure with one finger. Take your case back screws, make sure that they look like this, and apply, screw them down in. I'm really hoping that the watch works. You can see the time was being displayed when I flipped it over, but I need to verify that that backlight is working, which all has to do with that little tiny piece at the beginning of the reassembly. So fingers crossed that I got it right. Okay, I am loosely putting in the screws. Okay, then I'm going to lift, okay, and then I'm going to check the seam between the case back in silver and the case in black. I want to make sure that I don't see any O-ring being pinched around here, because again, that will compromise your water resistance rating. So that looks good. Then I can go ahead and just fully tighten these screws. Okay, and let's take a look at our work. Okay, let's start with the functions. So I like to start with the bottom left. I'm checking number 1 for sound. If you don't have that sound, that means that spring either fell off or it's not making good contact with the case back. In this case, we have the sound, so we're good. Let's go to a stopwatch to check the other functions. This is going to be for start here on the bottom right. Push it again to stop. And I believe this is the clear button, oddly enough. This red button. Okay, so this works, and this works. The top left, we're going to go to the main time. And if you push and hold, we should go into an adjust mode. There we go. So that one is working. And we will adjust the date and time for the customer's location in a little bit. Now, a moment of truth here, the backlight. And I think we got it. Let me turn this off and get it in focused. Okay, it's definitely working, but I'm having a hard time focusing this for you. Come on now. It's looking perfectly clear to me, but in the camera it's not. There we go. So, backlight is working perfectly. So if you do this reassembly and your backlight is not turning on, you want to go back to the very beginning, and that little tiny contact that was on the side, remember it had a white backing and then a silver front. You want to leave the silver facing you, but you just want to turn it 180 degrees to the other side, then reinstall back just like we did, and the backlight should work. Okay, so number 1, be very careful disassembling this watch because you don't want to lose that part, otherwise you lose your backlight. And number 2, just take note of how you install things. If things don't work out the first time you install this, not a big deal. Every little challenge is a learning experience. Take it apart, change the orientation, and everything should be good to go. So now we're good. So here is our positive display on this particular watch. If you guys want to add more pop, sometimes people add the positive display first, and then they put a colored filter afterwards, and so that would give it a different effect. Personally, I think it looks good just the way it is. Okay, you want to check also the quality of all of these characters here. You see the Thursday, the analog clock here, all these numbers. Okay, sometimes what can happen when you reinstall this is like, let's say the bottom of the T isn't showing, or, this 6 right here is missing one of the bars to make it look like a 6. Maybe it looks like like a weird 5 or something. What that could mean is that you probably did not do an all clear properly with that paper clip, okay? Because sometimes if you don't do an all clear, that's what you're gonna get. So you might have to take apart the watch again. But everything looks good here. And again, for the customer, I always like to run through all the buttons, which we just did, and everything is working perfectly. Okay, let's go ahead and get the strap installed here. Now I put the watch this way. This is the 12 o'clock here. So my 12 o'clock is on the left. The short strap always goes to the left side. You just want to turn it upside down. And the longer strap always goes to the 6 o'clock side. Okay, let's do the 6 o'clock first. So this is a little bit of a trickier install just because of this really odd guard that I've never seen before on a Casio. Anyways, what I like to do is take the spring bar and kind of push it like 3/4 of the way out, not quite all the way out, but just enough where I can kind of put some pressure with my thumb on it. And I'm going to install one end of the spring bar into one of these holes. So that way I know that one of them is pretty much lined up. And then I'm going to push the strap the rest of the way in. There we go. And then kind of hard to see, but the other end of that spring bar is not installed yet. So it's just kind of popping up there. So take something soft and just kind of push that in while putting downward pressure with your thumb. Okay, again, I'm not using metal here. I'm using a toothpick because I don't want to scratch the plastic case here. What a weird looking and but probably very comfortable for the customer. That's probably why they put that in there. Okay, so I'm having a hard time getting that in. So what I'm going to do is take my spring bar tool and actually go through the little slot here, and I'm going to try to grab that spring bar from the inside. You can see it there. I'm trying to reach it, and I'm going to try to pry inward on that spring bar so that way I can push everything down. Okay, there we go. That was a lot easier. Now I need to make sure that that spring bar is actually in. So I'm going to, now that I know it's sitting in the lug, the strap, I need to pry outward now on that spring bar to force it firmly but gently into its hole for that lug. Okay, I think okay. Then I'm going to go to the other spring bar here, the other side of the spring bar, and also force or push that part into its hole. I know it's already in there, but I want to make sure that it's completely seated inside of it. Okay, I think that's in. Then I'm going to want to apply a little bit of stress to the strap, because if the spring bar is not completely installed properly, the strap will fall and then the watch will fall off. And I would rather the watch fall off now over this workspace than the customer wear it and it falls off on their wrist and goes crashing to the floor and damages the watch. So to apply some stress, I'm just going to tug outward first gently but firmly, then push inward, twist this, which would kind of simulate the watch, you know, kind of being pushed by the movement of your wrist. So I'm going to kind of twist it this way, and then I'm going to push it down and then pull it up towards me, and this is not going anywhere. So that tells me that we installed that part of the strap properly. Now we're going to go and do the same thing for this side. Okay, let's try this one again. This one's a little bit tougher. Okay, I think that's in. Let's go ahead and stress this side out a little bit. Okay, now that we have the strap installed, the last thing to do is just put the screws for the shroud on. So again, these are not necessary to remove, I found, but simple enough to install. Okay, shroud looks good, and then we'll just fully tighten these in. And let's take a look at our work here. And there we go. So all done with this mod. Came out pretty well. A little bit tricky. Oddly enough, I think the strap was probably the hardest part of this install. but look at how much easier that is to read. So much better. Okay, let's go ahead and get this on the wrist. By the way, today I am wearing the Citizen Challenge Timer Reissue Quartz on an aftermarket strap. Very cool watch. Picked this up from a Japanese seller. Okay, go ahead, and I always carry a little towel here with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and then I like to just clean my wrist before I wear this because it's not my watch. But I always wear the watch for the video because, again, you're putting some stress on the strap, and I would rather have the strap fall apart now than when the customer puts it on. So here is a look, little wrist roll. Checking for any dust that might be here on the inside of the watch that might have been trapped, in which case you have to disassemble it and kind of get that out. But in this case, we don't have anything, no fingerprints. And then let's check the functions one more time. Yeah, I just can't get this backlight to show up clear for you guys, but it looks very good. Definitely nothing like it does in the video. Let me try one more time here. Yeah, it's a little bit better, but not great, but it's working completely fine. These numerals, by the way, look completely full and crisp. Right now in the phone that's recording, it looks like it's missing some parts, but in person, it looks completely connected. So it's just more to do with the camera. Okay, and then we are all set. So guys, that will do it for today's mod. Hopefully you guys found something useful. I invite you guys to not only follow this channel, but also my Instagram. The Instagram name is in the description. In there, you'll find some of my other Casio mods that I've done for myself and for customers, as well as my other watches and EDC items that I own. It's also the place that I recommend you contact me if you see anything in these videos or my Instagram and you say, hey, I kind of want the same thing done for my watch. Just send me a personal message and I will be happy to respond to you with more details. And as always, guys, any comments or questions, put them down below. Thanks for sticking with this rather long video. Hope you guys learned something. And as always, have fun, and I will